Hey, welcome back to Well-Oiled Operations. Today, we're talking about building your business to sell. Why would you want to do that? Well, number one, why not at the end, right? Your options at the end of your business are you close it down, you just get $0 for it, right? It just dissolves. Number two, you give it to somebody. Maybe you give it to an employee, you give it to a family member, right? There's really no monetary transaction. It's just, hey, here you go, right? Because maybe it's not that sellable. They don't want to actually buy it, but they'll take it over. And then number three is you actually sell it for a specific number, right? So why are we thinking about building to sell? Even if you're thinking, Stacy, that's 10 years away, 20 years away, 30 years away. Okay. Well, building a business that is sellable is really enjoyable to run. Okay. Building a business that is not sellable is probably what many people's lives are like right now, right? The team is a mess. The team is non-existent, not taking ownership, not taking accountability. You've got to get in there all day, every day. You're problem solving like crazy, right? There are no systems. A lot of the systems are dated or just not even in existence, right? And that is not fun. So this conversation today is all about what would you need to do? What would you need to get in place right now if you wanted to make this business actually an asset you could sell at some point? Now, the reason I want to share this is my studios are a huge asset. I have no plans to sell my studios in the near future. Okay. One day, probably, but I'm talking like for the next decade, I have zero plans of trying to sell. I just bought a third location. So I'm not in the market to sell, but I absolutely want them being in a place where they are very, very sellable because it's just less of a headache for me. I'm building more of an asset, right? I'm building my retirement. So I have brought on today such an amazing client we have. Her name is Aleta Mechtel. And the reason I have her on is because I can talk about what I think it takes to build it to make it look sellable, but Aleta has actually sold one of her businesses and she has gone through it all with the brokers and multiple buyers and selling her business for a specific multiple of her profit. Like she's done it and she's done it really, really well. And you know you've got something when multiple people are trying to buy it from you. So we're going to go through Aleta's story. What did she build and how did she build it to sell? And what did she do to get absolute top dollar for it? And then what her story is after. She didn't just quit and retire, right? Which she easily could have never worked another day in her life. She immediately started the next business within 90 days. And on top of that, that business, this new business, she already said she's already getting numbers like she did for the first business that was like 20 years old. So an incredible story by a phenomenal business woman. I am so grateful she is in our programs. I personally get so much value out of having her in our group. I am learning from her things that I haven't done, revenues I haven't hit. So she's just an incredible person to learn from. And I'm so excited to share her with you. Welcome, Aleta. Aleta, welcome to Well-Oiled Operations.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Yeah, I'm so excited to get in this conversation. I am a big believer in building to sell, whether you have any intention on selling at all. I just think it's a smart way to build your business. But I also get quite a few people that come to Well-Oiled that actually come with the intention to well-oil it to sell it. So I think today's conversation is going to be so fun and so good for a lot of people that are, should I think about selling? What would I have to do to get it in that shape? So before we dive in, can you just kind of give a little bit of your entrepreneurial journey, like what that's looked like, and we'll go from there.
Absolutely. So I was a kindergarten teacher and decided that I didn't really realize that that was how teachers got operated in a school and the support lack thereof. So I thought, maybe I chose the wrong profession, and I had to really do some deep soul searching for me to realize either I'm going to pave a different path and go back to school and do something else, or I'm going to make a difference. And I chose make a difference. And so I surrounded myself with some really intelligent business owners, and they helped me build and grow my first school that I opened. So that was back in 2000, and I didn't know what I was doing. I was a kindergarten teacher, and
Right.
I made a lot of mistakes. And when I started growing my first company in 2007, I was given an opportunity to build a building and have my second location, my second school. So I did that, and then the recession hit. So I laid on my living room floor in a ball crying. What am I going to do? I'm going to, so I've been through all the steps and all the challenges that a business owner had to take. Working in my business, working on my business, I didn't know how to do. Fast forward a couple more years, I had another opportunity to open a third location. That was renting. And during my renovation of that, I had another opportunity to open and build my fourth location. So it kind of happened fast after
Mhm.
that. Meanwhile, I was building a substitute teacher placement company, and things were just falling into place. I was solving problems that I was having.
Okay. I was just going to say, what made you do that? So you were struggling and you're like, somebody needs to
Yes.
do this.
Yes, I was consistently in a classroom. I was not able to answer the door. I couldn't file the paperwork. I could barely run payroll. Like I was wearing every single hat possible. And as I was doing this, I'm like, if I could just find a real good quality sub to get in my classroom, I could get back in my office. So I was trying to figure out how to solve my problems I was having. And if I was having these problems, so many other people were. I was mentoring and coaching a group of childcare owners at that time through the county. And I asked them, if I build a sub list, would you guys want that? And they were like, yes. I said, well,
Yeah.
I won't charge you a lot because you're going to be my guinea pigs. Give
Yeah.
me feedback, let me make mistakes. And so that's how I built my other company. So that was kind of like a side hustle, kind of like we're just going to figure it out as I go along and
Yeah.
build it like I did my schools, my preschools. And I knew at some point I wanted to exit the childcare industry, the preschools. And I wanted to do it when my son, my youngest, was about 18. And
Yeah.
so on my dream boards, on my vision boards, every year I wrote that number. I also wrote what I wanted to sell it for. Now,
Mm.
it was a big stretch for me to sell it at that amount, but I knew that if I kept writing that number over and over again, it was going to come true. So again, surrounding yourself with really big, smart business leaders. I had been in a group for many years. We have gotten to know each other's families. We knew what our businesses were. We grew together. We solved each other's problems. But the one person that was in there, one of my mentors, he basically said to me, "You're going to hit some pretty big numbers this year." And I said, "Yeah." And he said, if you hit those, I will buy you." And I was like, whatever, laughed, got on the
Yeah.
plane, got home, and
Mm.
literally there was a text saying, "I was serious, talk to your husband, let's have a meeting." And
Wow.
so I was like, okay, so when I did, I'm very good friends with my brokers also. So I knew who I was going to use to broker my company. I knew I didn't want to do it on my own. I was going to leave money on the table. I knew I wanted the most bang for my buck, even though it was
Mm.
one of my dear best friends. I was going to take him all the way to the end and get as much money as I possibly could.
I love
So
it.
I
I
could
love
give
it.
back, right? So I worked
You
with my
built it.
brokers real
You
close.
earned
Yeah.
it. Yeah. Why
Yeah.
not?
And I told everyone I had to find a good childcare for my baby now.
Yeah.
I never had to do that because, I had my kids with me all along, but this was the baby that I built. And I knew I wasn't ready to retire. So in the back of my head, I'm like, okay, we're going to go strong on my sub company, and I'm going to be that mentor and coach that I'm able to do, maybe be involved in my nonprofit, do some bigger things and help others. As we were going through this, my brokers brought different buyers in and had different questions. I think one of the biggest questions I got was, wow, your in-service training has high numbers in the profit and loss. You spend a lot of money on training your team, and it's double. And sometimes people were telling me it was triple, quadruple what they've ever seen in the industry. And then they would come back and say, well, that's not how we do things. I'm like, well, then you're not right for my team. It was, who am I going to fight for? What am I going to fight
Yeah.
for? And,
And
in the back
let's
of my
be
head,
real. Like they're looking at you because your business is doing very well.
Mhm.
And they're like, oh, you spend too much educating
Yeah.
your team. I
Yeah.
don't know. Maybe that's what's making you so successful. It's
Right, because my
crazy.
turnover was so low and my
Yes.
retention rate in my families, it was just such
Yeah.
great, opportunities for me to really see what they wanted to do. Did they just want to come in and take it over
Yeah.
and do what they wanted? Or it taught me a lot going through the brokers, going through multiple buyers.
Did you end up selling to the mentor or no?
Oh yeah,
You
yeah,
did.
yeah.
Okay.
I knew I would, but
Okay.
I just wanted to go through the experience
Yeah.
and there was a lot of things that I learned through that I'm
Yeah.
helping other business owners walk through and be able to close on. I teach them what to look for, things you never think
Mhm.
about. What are you going to do when that money hits your account, really? I
Yeah.
mean, do you have all the people in place? And something that I can't wait to talk about when I come to Milwaukee, with you is all of those feels, all of those things, who
Mhm.
you're surrounding yourself with right now to prepare you
Yeah.
for the sale at the end. Are they going to fight for you? Are they going to show up at the table? Is it going to be your high school best friend who is giving you a deal on, the accounting and really doesn't know how to walk
Yeah.
you through a sale of a company and get you the money you deserve because you've been working so hard, right? And building this. But anyway, yeah, then we sold and it ended up being I was closing on the day of our annual planning for the upcoming year.
Okay.
And they were like, "Are you really going to be with us? Walk us through planning for 2022 when you're selling December 9th?" Like, this was our annual plan. Like, yeah, of
Yeah.
course I'm going to. And they're like, "Well, what if they want us to operate different?" I said, "They're not going to change anything the first year for sure, right?"
Yeah.
So
First
we,
year is you. I
yeah,
just bought a business. I wasn't coming in to just destroy everything year one.
right.
I'm like, tell
Right.
me what you're doing. I bought it because I thought it was successful. I wanted to just kind of play it out. So I agree. I think that was a
Yes.
smart move.
Yeah. So I led them to through their quarterly goals, their KPIs, their what they were going to do, what, their numbers should be like. And maybe, they changed it a little bit, but they still had everything all the way to the end. And I just remember getting a notification on my phone that we were closing and I walked in the other room and excused myself and literally we were all together, we closed and I'm like, "That's it?" And they're like, "Yep." And then the attorney said, "Okay, funds wired." Accountant said received. Everybody just looked at us and then they said congratulations and I was like, "Wait, this is all that it is? Like, I'm done?" "Yep, congratulations, you're free." And I'm like, "But I still have 2 hours of a planning meeting I have to
Yeah.
go out and finish." So I went back out, whatever, and I didn't tell them. They didn't know why I excused myself. We got to the end of the day and they said, my 13 of my leaders are sitting at the table and they're like, "Well, when is this all going to happen?" I said, "Well, it happened a few hours ago." And they were like, "What?" They all started crying and I'm like, "Oh," and it was such a good thing. I mean,
Yeah.
I said, "I didn't die. I'm still here. You can still be my friend. I will be here to answer any questions." But really, I walked away and the choices that I made, I didn't go back into my buildings or my schools or my business for almost 2 years.
Wow.
And everyone's like, "What are you doing here? Oh my gosh, hello." And I didn't feel like I needed to.
Yeah.
Nobody needed to reach out to me. I saw what they were doing on social media. I couldn't have been more proud. I still am proud. And now they're actually rebranding into who they were. They didn't rebrand at first. And a part of me is chiseling away because I worked
Yeah.
so hard for 20 years. But
Yeah.
you know what? That's something that I released and I'm working so hard moving forward. And I was able to close in December, rebranded, started coaching and mentoring in April, and then had my
So within
website
90
up.
days, you're already on to the next thing.
I'm done. Yeah.
Yeah.
And we started, my first year, I think it was over 160% that I increased my substitute teacher placement company because then, like I keep telling you, I jumped into Well Oil or Powerhouse and
Yeah.
this sub company was running itself successfully. I didn't really have much to do with it because I didn't really have the time, but I let them do what they needed to do to
Yeah.
continue. And I went back to basics with Well Oiled and just put some processes in place,
Yeah.
remembered what made
Which I
me
want to hang on. I want to
successful.
pause because I've got
Yeah.
questions before we jump into that story.
Oh, okay.
That's a whole another story. So
Yeah.
first of all, my question is, how close did you get to the number on your vision board?
I closed at that number.
Okay. So what I want people to understand is some people are into the woo-woo stuff. And some people are like, wait a minute, you just write a number down and then you get it.
No,
No.
I fought for it. Yep.
Yeah, that number is a daily reminder of what you're doing, what you're building, why you're doing it, right? So it's not a coincidence that was, I knew that was going to be your answer.
Yes.
It's not a coincidence. And I knew what you sold for, but I didn't know that you had it on the vision board. But I
Yeah.
knew that was going to be the case because that is what a vision board does. It keeps you on task. It keeps you looking at the vision and look at you like, yeah, I hit exactly what it was because that was the goal. That was what you were shooting for.
Right.
So you were building it to be valued at that number, not a coincidence.
Yeah, and I always kept my vision board right over my computer screen on that wall. So no matter what, I could always look up. And when I went to conferences, I doodled that number in between all my notes on every page. That number was on everything I owned. I put it in my vehicle. I put it on my phone. I mean, it was a number where it was a stretch goal of mine. And I knew that I had to put certain processes in place and certain year-end goals and create competition between the schools so they would one up each other and they would keep going and going because I wasn't going to fall short on that bottom line profit.
Yeah.
And not only that, but Stacy, the big thing is I wrote big, like $15,000 and $30,000 checks. And I put them on the wall at the office and said, if you hit these numbers, you can take these checks off the wall. And they all got those big checks at the end of the year because they fought for that bottom line, which then made me able to accomplish my selling price.
Yeah. So good. You sell and you immediately start another business. Do you have to start a business? Could you just go retire somewhere and just hang out?
Yeah. Money doesn't motivate me. What motivates me is helping others.
Yeah.
And I have a passion for making sure people don't have to reinvent the wheel. If I can give them one little nugget, one little piece that can move the needle in such a way that can help them, I'm all in. And yes, I can charge. And yes, I was drinking from a fire hose. And yes, I had to take everything off my website and say I'm not coaching and mentoring anymore because I have a big wait list. But again, going back to well-oiled or powerhouse, I'm learning how to do more, less.
Yeah.
And so I've just kind of I jumped all in and I'm backing off and making different decisions and creating different opportunities for people so I can help more at a less time frame. I mean, really in groups versus one-on-one.
And you can just make a bigger impact by it.
Oh, so, for sure.
Do you think the side hustle, which is so funny, like that's what it was. Do you think the side hustle will be just as big or bigger than what you sold?
Yeah. So currently I was speaking to a couple people. I don't know if I'll ever sell because from that, it's kind of wonky because from my sub company, I created the operations and the blueprint model so people can purchase that and open their own sub company. So selling that company is kind of a little odd, but I did have some valuations on that company and I'm almost at the same valuation as I sold my schools currently.
Which that hasn't been that long.
I know. I know.
It just kind of shows you, I know this isn't the topic today, but I want to go on a tangent for a second. When somebody builds something really good and it crashes and they're like devastated, like I always am reminding them, if you built it once, you can do it again.
Yes.
And look, I mean, you never crashed, like you had the success, but like you built it again, but faster because you had all that knowledge and those skill sets within you.
Stacy, though, I crashed. The sub company crashed when COVID hit. We went to zero placement hours. I had to do everything I can to keep all my subs. So we did happy hours and we did lunch and learns and I sent them little branded tchotchkes so they could use that as a part of the game boards. And like, I didn't lose one of my subs, but we weren't placing them for 6 weeks. We were completely at zero. And then, I was placing over 1,200 hours and all of a sudden our highest amount was 30. And then it was like 600. It took a long time to recover from that.
Yeah.
But because of my communication, because of my relationship building, because of my customer service that I had, that we just reached out, we had a plan to reach out to all of our contracted partner schools. Like they literally were so grateful to just say hello and cry and let me coach them through or talk through with my team. We divided and conquered the best we knew how and literally hit bottom for 6 weeks. Zero.
Wow.
Zero, nothing, no
So
money.
you've experienced it. You've had the ups and the
Oh
downs
yeah.
for sure.
Yeah. But
Okay.
it's now amazing.
Yeah, I mean, look how like just you're cruising. I mean, every time we talk, I'm just like, now what are you doing? What's happening? Fill me in now. So I want to ask you, what do you think are maybe like top 3, 4 things you did in the first business to get it sellable? Like somebody listening to this that's like, I really would like to sell. What would you tell them to look at, assess, start working on?
Yeah. Yeah. So the number one thing that I would say is it can take anywhere from 6 months to 16 months to sell, depending on where your business is. And the number one thing you want to do is remove yourself from the company, remove your name, remove yourself. You are not the eyes and the sight of your company. Because what's going to happen is when somebody comes in to buy, they're not buying you unless you're going to continue to still work there, then that's totally fine. Maybe that's what's your plan. But for me, I was not on site for probably 2 years. I was there leading the management team. I
So no
built the
one's
most
coming in like,
incredible
hey,
team.
where's Aleta? I need to speak to Aleta. They haven't seen you in
Nobody,
2 years.
no.
Yeah.
And if a situation escalated to me, then it was my job to educate whoever it came from, that leader,
Yeah.
give them a little bit more tools to strengthen so the situation didn't come to me. I was saying the other day, I was on a podcast too. I don't remember there being a time when in the last couple of years where a situation really got escalated and came to me. My team, building a leadership team of problem solvers is the number two biggest thing that you can do. Whoever buys you is going to come in and want that leadership team to be strong to continue the company. Everyone is always fearing, oh, they're going to get rid of my leadership team. They're going to do this. People that purchase companies don't want to rattle, don't want to change things up right away. They don't want to fire anyone. Those are the face of the company. And that's what's helping make your company run successfully. And the third thing, you guys, policies and procedures. If everything's in your head and nobody knows really what to do in an absence of maybe a management or a leader or a regional director or director of whatever it is. It's so important to have that process written down or videoed or something. So in case they're not able to fill whatever seat they're in or whatever role they're in, somebody else can easily come in. I always say to my classroom teachers, if I, as the owner, came in to sub in your classroom, are your lesson plans clear enough that I could fulfill the entire day without anyone noticing that you were gone? Like, can I do that? I tell my leadership team all the time, if I were to come in and do your job today, is there something step by step? And so it's not me creating those processes and policies. My brain cannot do that. I mean, I can't get it from here to on paper or anything. I can verbally record everything, but my team has created some pretty powerful processes. Now,
The good
because we're
news
growing so
is
fast, we're
you
changing.
don't, you don't have to, which is great. Like
No,
you're saying we were really systematized, but you're also saying I'm not great at systems. Like that's not you
no.
don't have to be. You can have somebody on the team that's really good at it.
Yeah.
So good.
Yeah.
Okay. So sometimes we'll have people say, well, I know I could get $1 million for my business. I know I could get this much for my business. Can you just share what you've learned of like what makes a business valuable? What makes that dollar sign go up?
So I'm going to tell you, hands down, no matter what you do, don't do it by yourself. Because a broker who can help guide you and coach you through a successful sale will get you top dollar for your company. He or she will bring you through what you need to work on, what you need to increase, where you're falling short. They will work with your accountant. They will work with your attorney. They will make sure that your banker and your financial advisor is on track. Everybody is going to be in the know. There will be people out there that will send you letters and they're like, oh, I will give you $11 million for your company. And you're like, yes, I'm going to sell it. And then you get to the table and you find out really your business worth is 600,000.
Yeah.
And they were just throwing numbers, got you excited, and then you kind of fall. I've heard this happen so many times. Or someone sends you a letter and they're like, oh yeah, I'm going to offer you 11 million. And you're like, 11 million. I've worked so hard. This is so incredible. Sold to that person. Right. And then they get to the table and the banker and they start looking at numbers and you start signing paperwork and they're like, but your business was worth 27 million. And then they're like, what? And so that has happened as well. I'm just grateful I didn't have any partners that didn't have to work with, or family members, because that's a whole nother step that I will help coach on and train, because I've seen a lot of scary things happen with that. But the biggest takeaway I can tell someone is, no matter where you're at in your company, make sure that your books are up to date. Your policies and procedures are going strong. You have good relationships with the professional people that you need, that will sit at the table and fight for you, and have a very educated, well-known broker. And brokers are scammy. So get some referrals, talk to them, interview them. Your belly's going to tell you. And I'm very fortunate that one of my biggest mentors and one of my biggest business people that I hang out with, and I'm proud to call her one of my best friends, she is a broker, and she was step by step with me through this whole process. And I couldn't be more proud of how everything went, but it can really go into disaster mode quick when you don't have the right people in your court.
I think it was so smart to go to, even though you had this mentor, to say, listen, I need to do its due diligence here, and I need to play full out, and I'm going to see what other people are bringing to the table. Because when only one person's involved, right, it's like, take it or leave it. There's not much negotiation. You don't get to see somebody else's opinion. So I think that was really smart. How much of the valuation is based off of profit?
In my case, all of it. I didn't take a lot from the business, so, you've got your ad backs, and then you've got the areas that didn't need it anymore, my health insurance. And
what does ad backs mean for people listening?
Yeah, ad back says anything that I personally take from the company: a salary, health insurance, gas,
your phone bill. Right. Because they're saying, oh, wait, Aleta profited this, but also we're not going to pay her phone bill anymore. We're not going to get her gym membership or whatever you were doing. Right. So they're looking at it. Oh, we actually have this budget to spend on the new CEO, or for me, the owner, right? That I'm going to come in and get that. So that's what she means when she says that. But what I want everybody to hear is, she said almost all of it is profit. And I will tell you, the people that tell me, I think I'm just going to sell it, their profit isn't great, which means it may not be that sellable, right? So if you don't have great profit and you are working all the time in your business, not many people are going to want to buy that business. So you've got to be really careful.
Yeah. And I started preparing literally 3 years prior. So I scaled back, like I skimped, and I coached my team to have a higher profit, because I knew for 3 years, they're going to look back 3 years and give me a multiple of what my profit is. A multiple was, is it 3 times the bottom line? Is it 4 times? Is it 6 times? Is it 9 times? What is that multiple of your profit that you're going to sell for? And so I knew what the multiples were, because I had been watching, and I knew, in order for me to get this number that I was writing and wishing for and dreaming of, and no matter what, this was going to be my number that I was going to go to the table and fight for, I needed my profit to be a certain percentage of my revenue. And I started 3 years prior. Again, I mean, the whole process doesn't take 3 years. It could, but but when you go into your company and you know what your end result is going to be, you just start running your company towards that end result regardless. If you want to sell in 5 days, 5 months, 5 years, 50 years, doesn't matter, but you've got to have a direction going.
Yeah. And I think like the intent is always super important. So if I don't have an intent to sell in the next 3 years, I'm behaving differently in my business, right? I might be scaling revenue, not caring as much about profit. But if you told me, Stacy, you're going to be forced to sell this business in 3 years, I wouldn't be crazy on the revenue side. I would be looking at, how do we make this thing as healthy and profitable as can be? So that's why I get nervous when somebody comes up with the idea today. You know what? I'm going to sell this thing in 6 months. I'm thinking, you haven't done the work to really get it in the shape you want it to be in.
Well, and some people go into business and they don't even think that they're even going to sell their company in the end, right? They don't even know, like, they're like, wait, what? I'm going to sell my company? Yeah, it doesn't just dissolve. And I would hate for you to go into a company without wanting to sell it. I mean, you're growing this. Your blood, sweat, and tears are in this. You are going all in every day, all day, taking risks that other people don't. Of course, you want to sell it. And if you don't sell it, does it get absorbed into a bigger company or a different company that they're still paying you for, right? So you
your
still
email
need to
list, your
have,
contacts.
yes,
Yeah.
yes.
I mean, why would you not want the asset at the end of this, right?
Right.
I mean, we do see people in well-oiled that will say, listen, if I can't get this figured out in the next 6 months, we're probably just going to close it down, right? And to me, I'm like, you've got something here, right? Like we can get this well-oiled enough where somebody's saying, I would like to spend this much money and buy it, right?
Yes.
Versus just letting it fade and just fall apart.
Yeah, that's not good.
Okay, so this has been so good. We didn't even get into like the next part of the story, which is like so good too. But I really know so many people are thinking about, should I sell? Should I not sell? It comes up often. So what is a piece of advice you want to leave our listeners with for somebody who maybe this is like a new idea for them and they're now starting to consider this? What would you say to them?
I would just say, take your entire program, go back to basics, almost start over. Like I was saying to you, I almost had like a grand opening after how many years I had been running this business successfully for 7, 8 years.
Yeah.
And I went back to basics, put all my systems in place. I built a leadership team from one full-time employee to 1.5 employees, to now I have 6 full-time salary-based leadership team that
I
are
was gonna say
taking,
rock stars.
numbers to places that I never thought, which then made me be able to dive even deeper into the company and make sure that I was dissecting the profit and loss and the balance sheet and making sure all of our numbers and just holding them accountable in different ways. Just really get to know your company and finish strong. Like, don't make excuses for your bottom line. Don't make excuses for the income that you could be having. You're taking a risk in owning a company. Take a risk and really invest in good people to help you.
So good. And here's the thing, following Aleta's advice on all of this, the worst case scenario is you decide, you know what, I don't want to sell. And then you have this enjoyable business that doesn't need you, that you can keep running. Like to me, there's just no downside in preparing for a sale when it's just a healthy, really healthy business that has problem solvers. Okay, sounds amazing. Sign me up.
Yeah. And you should always run your business as you are selling, no matter what.
Yeah.
No matter what.
Full agreement there. Okay, Aleta, I would love for people to hear, there's so many different types of people that could be listening, but somebody that's like, wait, what is the substitute placement? What does she have? Anywhere that you want to send people, where would they go to find more about you?
Yeah, so you can go to aletamechtel.com and I have all 3 ways that you can get a hold of me if you are interested in learning more about what a substitute teacher placement company is, or if you want to open a substitute teacher placement company, or if you just want to reach out and get some mentoring or coaching, I'm all for that as well.
Amazing. Aleta, thank you so much for being here and just for showing people like you are somebody very successful that's not afraid to go back to the basics. So many times we think like, oh, I'm past that. I don't need to do that, right? But it really is like the foundational stuff that blows up the business.
For sure.
Congrats on your success.
Thank you. Thank you.